Cool. Hello? 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 Oh, I should probably make sure I'm on the right headphone. Hello? Hello? Cool, that's at full volume. All right. Starting soon. All right. I'm going to be getting it going. Where's the button? Okay, there we go. Cool. Hello. Welcome. I'm doing my first stream on YouTube. I guess I've done like a couple on here, but I took them down. I just kind of had like a testing one up here. But yeah, so I'm going to take this off so I'm not echoing in my own ear. Yeah, I was, testing, see how the volume was, making sure I had the right sound. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a Baki tier list, a Baki character tier list. Just making sure I got my webcam on. Going to be doing a Baki character tier list. Got my chat here, so if anyone happens to be chatting, they can chat. At the moment, I'm pretty sure the only person watching is myself monitoring the chat, so don't have to worry about that. But yeah, I'm kind of just, since I'm new to this, I wanted to kind of start off with something, tier list for a series I like. I've been reading Baki. I read, I'm fucking, I love it. I started it on April 20th. I remember the date because, 420. And I've been reading it just constantly since I started it, just burning through the series. I'm on, I just started the 5th part of Baki, so these characters I'm unfamiliar with. These sumo guys down here. So I'm not going to rank them, but I made sure to write down the names of all the characters here just in case I happened to forget everyone, but I recognize these characters. There's some characters left out of this, but, what are you going to do? If they happen to come to mind and I think of a spot to put them, then I'll think of some. But from the looks of it, this would be pretty much all the characters that I could think of to rank. There's some characters that they kind of don't have a big enough role in the series for me to even care about ranking, but these guys I can worry about ranking. So yeah, I'm just gonna start. Starting off pretty much just right with Baki. I actually really like Baki himself, Baki Hanma. He's a really entertaining protagonist. He kind of shifts. He's kind of got a really I kind of like that he's an inconsistent character because when he does something that's out of character, it feels cool. I just finished the 4th part where they're dealing with the clone of Masashi Miyamoto, and Masashi has his fight with Hanayama, and Hanayama is he's lost too much blood, he kind of collapses, and he's about to pull the sword and finish off Hanayama, and Baki tells him, if you do that, I'll kill you. And, Baki's never made a declaration to anyone that he was going to kill them. This is specifically a unique situation where, he's tried to kill Sikorsky before when Sikorsky had his girlfriend, trapped and she was in her underwear, humiliated. But he's never straight up made a declaration to someone that he was going to kill them. And he just constantly, throughout the arc, made that declaration. I also really liked, his fight with Biscuit Oliva. That was awesome. That actually stands to be my favorite fight in the series. That or his second fight with Yujiro. I love the fight with Yujiro in the, strongest father-son quarrel. But the fight with Biscuit Oliva, that is the fight that truly had me fall in love with this series. I was watching, I started it over a year ago. I watched the first 6 episodes of the Netflix stuff. Wasn't really that into it. I stopped. And then my partner's cousin said he had been watching it, and I was like, you know what, that sounds pretty interesting. He was talking about one of the more recent arcs in the anime, the stuff where he's in prison, and so I decided I'd catch up. and I made it. I was kind of liking it. I was a little bit into it. The fights were cool, but once I got to the fight between Baki and Biscuit Oliva, that one, like, it's so ridiculous. It gets to the point where they decide they're done throwing techniques at one another. They're just gonna, like, stand their ground and throw punches. And I love when that happens in, like, anime and manga. Like, one of my favorite fights in Black Clover is the Soul Chain death match between Magna and the one of the devil guys. So that's, I love when this happens in anime. It's just an absolute fucking monkey brain thing, but it's my favorite when it happens. And, like, the way it's all drawn, like, Itagaki has this style, like, the way he draws the characters is they're so, like, rubbery, like, it's almost as if it's like a gelatinous mold of, like, a face, and then he's punching it as hard as he can and taking a picture of what it looks like when his fist hits it. It's just awesome. And that fight with Biscuit Oliva, I guess he was him being the first character, I guess, is a good choice because there's a lot to say about him being the main character. I liked, his whole backstory of growing up where he's got to be, training. He's trying to get his mom to love him, like, just to love him because, who doesn't want their mom to love them? She's just, all his life, she's just trying to get him to be strong for Yujiro, but he doesn't care about being that. Like, he just wants his mom to love him, so he's obeying her, but, that's kind of just to obey her. Like, that's just to get what she wants. And that obviously ends tragically when he can't defeat Yujiro. He goes through, he grows up. He starts to, like, feel regret for the lives he's taken through the years. When he, like, fought the gorilla. He fought the gorilla earlier. He just kind of showed up and fought it. People he's hurt in the ring. Decides he just wants to fight Yujiro and call it a day. Even though he continues to fight after defeating Yujiro, but that's whatever. It's just he gets bored. They come up with a way for him to not be bored. It's not like it was up to him to create a clone of Masashi Miyamoto. So he kind of just got pulled back into it by Tokugawa. But yeah, so it's also just like I love his, like, imagination thing where he's like, he just shadow boxes, but he's so good at imagining his opponent that, like, and imagining the impact on his body that it actually causes damage. And then he figures out how to fight things based on shadow boxing, and he learns different fighting techniques based on that. Like he did the praying mantis battle, where he imagined fighting a 200-pound imaginary praying mantis, which is still, one of the funniest fights to watch. Later on, he's got to fight Pickle and the caveman who fought dinosaurs, and Baki imagines, like, he's shadowboxing dinosaurs, and he learns fighting styles based on those, and he's somehow putting out, like, the weight and the damage that these creatures would have done, despite the fact that he's just this little, like, short king, like, 5'4", 5'6", like, weighs, like, I don't know, like 160 pounds, 130 pounds, I think they've said. He's something, like, ridiculous, where, like, he shouldn't be being able to do the damage he does or throw the weight around that he does, but he does because he's Baki fucking Hanma. So yeah, that's about all I can really give on Baki. Like, all the stuff kind of coming to mind. I really like Baki. He's a great character. I'll put him in S for now. He might get moved. There's other characters that I like a lot just because I like a lot. I didn't really count how many guys there are here, but I might try to cap off, like, every rank just in case I start overstuffing ranks. And I'll also have to start obviously ranking them against, the other characters. So yeah, for now I'll just say, like, maybe it'll be like 5 or 6 per rank. So next up we got Doppo Orochi. Doppo Orochi's awesome. He's so cool. The Tiger Slayer, the God of War, they call him. Lost his eye in a fight against Yujiro. What can I say about Doppo Orochi? He had that scene where he was fighting Dorian, where Dorian slices off his hands, and he has his whole thing where he's like, I used to practice spear hand, and it sucked because I was breaking my fingers, and I just thought, like, this would be so much better if I just didn't have fingers. You've given me my dream, and he just punches him in the face as hard as he can with his stump. And then he just leaves while he's recovering, gets his hand on ice, gets it sewn back on, waits 2 weeks, and surprises everyone with a punch in the face to Dorian. Doppo Orochi's so cool. He's great. all of his, like his fights throughout the series, he kind of seems, as I kind of think about Dopo Orochi, like he's kind of taken like a little bit of a back seat in a way. Like he kind of just is there to give advice. You don't see him fight a lot of these characters anymore. I don't really remember if he fought Pickle. I remember him going to try and fight Pickle, but I don't remember if he actually did, because a lot of the characters, who did actually fight Pickle, like Retsu, Katsumi, and Jack, they all got like a horrible injury. And Dopo Orochi's only horrible injury really was he lost his hand against Dorian, and he got it back. He lost his eye against Yujiro. But other than that, So yeah, he's kind of, just the badass kind of grandpa character of the series. He's the old karate master. He had his bit where he kicked the hell out of Ali Jr. That was pretty cool to kind of teach him a lesson. But yeah, so I'd probably say for now I'll put him in like A. A seems pretty fitting for him. Everything he's done in the series is really cool, but he hasn't really done a huge amount, I feel like, since Baki New Grappler Part 2. So yeah. Next up we got Motobe. Motobe, I would have, I didn't really care for him before, to be honest. But before, I probably would have ranked him in D. The only time I've ever seen him show up is, like, he shows up every once in a while. They say he's, like, looking for the ultimate fight. I've only ever seen him get his ass kicked, and, like, he tried to use a katana against Yujiro, and Yujiro just broke it. But Part 4, Bakido, Baki-Do, that part was a really awesome part for Motobe. He kept showing up and being like, I'm going to protect you guys. I'm going to protect the barehanded fighters of today. I'm the only person who has trained in the ancient style of war that Masashi Miyamoto used, and, I'm going to use that to protect you guys, because you guys are the barehanded fighters of today. I know how to fight with weapons. Masashi Miyamoto is a swordsman. I've studied his era. I know what I'm doing. So he becomes the guy to do it. And he has his fight with Masashi Miyamoto, and he actually does manage to win his fight despite, like, the injuries he sustains and the fact that he doesn't ultimately kill Masashi Miyamoto, which is what Masashi Miyamoto would have considered victory, but he did manage to, defeat him as far as what they were saying. And that was really unexpected. I honestly, the whole time Motobe was talking about taking on Masashi instead of everyone else, I was a little worried for him. Because he's still alive, and I was thinking, like, I've only seen Motobe get his ass kicked, but they're kind of building him up really good, where he's talking about how he's the only guy who's supposedly capable of doing this. But, like, I'm worried. I've never seen him do something that suggests he's capable of fighting him, but I've also seen all these other characters, fight Masashi that, like, I would think are really capable. Obviously, Baki had just had his fight with Yujiro and been given the title of strongest creature. But, so I would have thought that he would have beat him, but, he didn't. And Motobe was even pulling his trick where he's beating everyone with smoke bombs and just disappearing on them, and they're like, whoa, I have no idea what to do against this. So yeah, all really cool. Really redeeming for Motobe. It was really cool to see. I would have put him in D before, maybe F, but straight up, Motobe has kicked himself up to A, I want to say, because I kind of already have an idea of who my S-rank characters are. I've thought a little bit about this. I'm going to put him at the bottom of maybe at the top. I think I like him more than I like Dopo Orochi, so I'm going to put him ahead of Dopo Orochi, kind of next in line to be in the S rank. So next up is Ryuko Yanagi. He was a cool character, one of the 5 deadliest convicts, escaped death row, did his whole thing where he's got his vacuum palm, broke the acrylic bulletproof glass to escape, and then did that crazy thing where he blows the guy's brain out of his head. That was nuts. He managed to knock out Baki with that vacuum hand that he does to people. He has that whip hand that is super obviously effective with the poison hand. He's just a cool character. He hasn't really been around since then, but, he was cool. He was cool to have around. I liked his interactions with Shibukawa, the whole thing where they had a history, obviously, and he tosses the pot of boiling water into his hands, and catches him off guard, and then ultimately Shibukawa technically like loses their fight. And then he shows up at Baki's school. He's got that cool like scythe on a rope. That's a cool weapon. I've thought about like cool like a Star Wars kind of weapon of that like since seeing that. He's just a cool character. Got his ass handed to him by Baki, but who doesn't get their ass handed to them by Baki? Not much to say. He got his ass handed to him by Yujiro, obviously too. But again, who doesn't? He's a cool guy. That's all I can really say about him. I'll put him. I guess I'll put him. I'll put him in like B, cause like again like there wasn't a huge amount, obviously. You know what I mean? Like he's one of the deadliest convicts. He was around for that part. Got his ass handed to him after he was done. He didn't have much character outside of being this like poison hand guy, but he was cool in what he did. And he wasn't like the other convicts where he was like outrageous. I don't think Ryuko Yanagi was like anybody's favorite deadliest convict, but I've also never peeked into the Baki community. I'm still like, I don't want to see any spoilers, so I'm just like trying to get caught up before I start dipping into what other people think of these characters. But yeah, so Ryuko Yanagi, I can put him in B because the whole poison hand thing is really cool. The whip fist thing is pretty cool. He managed to actually take out Baki pretty much, in a way. He poisoned him. He had to go off to get healed. I see I got another person here in the chat. Welcome to the chat. Doing a Baki tier list. I'm on, I got Baki in S, just to recap, Motobe in A, Doppo Orochi in A, and Ryuko Yanagi in B. Because, as I'm saying, he didn't do a huge amount, but he was a pretty cool character. And I can't really justify putting him below B, at least for now. He might get pushed out, but yeah. Spec I can put up in A. He is also just one of the deadliest convicts guy, but he was so crazy, he was so ridiculous. He had his, ridiculous fight with Hanayama. He had his whole bit where he's like breaking in and out of prison was cracking me up, where he like busts open the wall and he's kind of just treating it like an apartment. He's in the prison, he's in the washroom with Sonoda, and he's, got his weirdly huge piss stream that is as if he's just got this, like, just huge, not like the thing itself, but, like, the hole coming out. And it's just, like, that was ridiculous. And, like, with the dumpling, he was entertaining enough for me to put in A as much as he was just one of the convicts that showed up for that small amount of time. He was super entertaining to watch. I liked he kind of had his little bit where he takes the gun and he starts shooting himself through the cheek and he blows out the air and it's like, what the hell, this is so ridiculous. He goes to offer Baki a handshake and it's like a severed hand from like some cop character that I don't remember. I thought maybe it was the detective from part 1 in the Childhood Saga who kept checking on him, but I looked into it and it wasn't that guy. I don't really remember who that was supposed to be, but that was, wild and crazy. So Spec, not much I can say outside of that. He was crazy and he was very entertaining to watch, so I can put him in A for that. Pickle was fun. Pickle was great. I'd put him in B. Realistically, like, as much as like what the tier list is, where it's, no one's gonna, if I put any character that I put in F isn't a character I dislike. Like, these are all, realistically, like, all Baki characters are just variations of S, but I wanted to kind of give it an actual, like, ranking system. So Pickle I'd probably put in B, because Pickle doesn't have a ton of personality. I'd honestly even be he'd probably get moved to C if I start getting more characters in B and I start hitting what I want to call the limit. But Pickle, doesn't have a ton of personality, being like a caveman, but he's got his whole thing where he wants to I thought it was really cool, like, just in a, that's just kind of badass, where like he's setting it up where all of the fighters are like, I don't care if I'm gonna get eaten. I'm gonna fight this guy. This guy is like, it sets something off in me where I just want to fight him. Like, I know he could eat me. I know he wants to eat me, but I'm not gonna let him eat me. We're gonna fight, and that's that. I thought that was cool. He kind of brought out something in a lot of the characters. Katsumi, Katsumi is one of my favorite characters, also, like, as of more recently, and it's specifically because of what Pickle did to him. Not Pickle, ripping off his arm, but the whole, like, he brought him to master the Sonic Punch and get the Mach Punch, where he just imagines he's got more joints in his bones, and somehow that means that he can shatter the sound barrier, like throw a punch faster than 767 miles per hour, just because he's imagining he has more bones or more joints in his bones. That's like the craziest thing I've ever seen in anything. And he's like, it's just a regular guy, no characters in Baki have superpowers, but the way you talk about it is like, these guys have to, like, that's super speed, but it's like, a character with super speed is built to endure throwing a punch at 767 miles per hour, whereas Katsumi was shattering his hands and foot for this attack, and then threw one even faster, and it caused his whole forearm to explode. I'm gonna get to Katsumi, I guess. You've already kind of heard my thoughts. I'll rank him when I get to him, but Pickle, he brought out, that's just the example. He brought out that in everyone. He pushed Retsu to change his path and go into boxing. Pickle's just a cool character, but I don't think he deserves to be higher than B, maybe C. So, yeah. Gaia. Gaia's alright. Gaia's fine. He's got his whole, he's like a dissociative identity disorder thing. I've heard Masashi point out that he's actually 4 guys, but as far as we've really seen, he's just the 2. I'm wondering if maybe every time we've seen him, he's been like a different personality. Like maybe the guy he was when we first were introduced to him isn't the same guy as when he fought Sikorsky. Because the first guy, I remember going back after I watched the Netflix stuff, and and I remember seeing him, and I remember seeing him in the Netflix stuff, and he was doing like this big environmental combat thing where he's like throwing sand around and being a dick. It wasn't the most enjoyable fight to watch, because he's mostly just throwing sand, disappearing, and like it was kind of like you're thinking about it like, oh man, that's brutal, like he's freaking Sikorsky out on this level, but like it wasn't much of like an entertaining like fight to watch. Gaia was built up to be this, like, the way they're talking about him during the childhood saga is he's supposed to be like a threat, like they're setting him up like he's on Yujiro's level, and then Baki beats him and thinks like, all right, this is it. Everybody's been building up Gaia like he's on Yujiro's level. I've beat Gaia, I can beat Yujiro. And then he goes to fight Yujiro, and Yujiro shows up with Gaia beat up, just tosses him on the ground. What was this? Why'd we build up Gaia like this? I mean, I get why. We gotta set up for Baki to try and fight Yujiro too early, but Jesus, man. Like it's kind of lame, to be honest. So, yeah, and every time he shows up, I'm just kind of not excited to see him. So, I'd probably put him in F. If I'm going to rank him against, any of these other characters. I don't think he's going to be above any of these other characters. Even Ali Jr., as done dirty as he was, I don't think he's going to be above anybody I got here. Yuichiro Hanma. C? C or maybe in D? I can't justify putting him super high on the list because he just showed up during a flashback with the fight with Yujiro and Baki. But in that bit where he showed up was like, he's ridiculous, like he just refused he was on an island that they were like bombing during like World War II, and they thought they were like almost terraforming the island he was on, and they went to go check on him, and he's just already killed like one of their guys, and he had that move called dress that as like the translation I read called it, where they're like spinning him, he like grabs people and he nunchucks them. like, and he nunchucks them so hard that they become, like, just a transparent, like, wind stream. That's bonkers, dude. But he also gave Baki that encouragement to beat Yujiro. That's pretty cool. You know, he's described as being the opposite of Yujiro. I want to know more about what his personality was like, because he seemed nice, but, like, other than being the brutal force that he was during that. But, I mean, yeah, that's it. Like, you know, he just was a brutal force. He seems like a nice guy, but we didn't see, obviously, enough of him for me to justify ranking him very high. I can put him in, like, D. I can put him in... No, I'll put him in C. I'll put him in C. I think C for now is where I'll put characters that, like, when they showed up, I was like, what? This is crazy. But they're not around. You know what I mean? They didn't, like, contribute a huge amount. He might get moved up. He might get moved down. We'll kind of see how this goes. But for now, he's C. He's even above, he's you know, a good ways above Gaia. Because I said earlier that all of this is just variations of S, but F is where Gaia is. It's F. Hector Doyle. Hector, I actually really liked him. I think he was my second favorite convict. No, he was my first convict. I definitely liked him more than I liked Dorian. I know Dorian's really popular for people, but I loved the bit with Hector. I could probably put him above Spec. I liked him more than I liked Spec, but I liked him less than I liked Dopo Orochi. Hector's whole, like, you know, he's one of the convicts again. The whole wanting to taste defeat, it's badass. Escaping the prison, he was in the electric chair. It's nuts. You got out of it? Man, what a crazy guy. He's got blades all put in his body, and he's got that weird, like, shotgun blast thing. You know, he's a cool character. I really enjoyed him. His whole bit where I died. Like, I cracked up his moments. He's got one of those moments where it's like, what is happening? Like, it feels like a JoJo scene, like a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure scene, where he goes into the karate dojo into Shinshinkai during one of the lessons, and Katsumi does this thing where he's always screaming at people to take their shoes off when they're in the dojo, and he says, I want to have a fight. I want to have a karate fight in here. And they're like, all right. And he's like, I need a karate gi, right? And they're like, yeah, we can get you one. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. I got my own. Puts on a fireproof suit, dumps out some cake flour, and sets off a dust explosion. That's nuts. I was glad, obviously, that Katsumi was alive after that. But that was such a JoJo scene, because you just see, like, the other guy, everyone's, like, reacting to it, but nobody's doing anything about it. Like, nobody really tried to stop him. They were just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is, what? And he just, you know, blew it all up. And then he goes through his whole bit, again, with Katsumi, where Katsumi just keeps knocking him out, and then as soon as he wakes up, he's like, oh, you're up. You gonna accept defeat? No. Knocks him out again. As soon as he wakes up, get this man a meal. Is it good? Yeah, it's pretty good. Cool. So do you accept defeat now? No. Knocks him out. One more time, you know, wakes up. Gonna accept defeat? No. Knocks him out, but he tells him he could destroy like a bunch of concrete blocks with his downward strike. Still no. Punches him. Not hard enough to kill him, but enough to like obviously dent his face inward. And then like he just gives up because he can't bring himself to kill him, and then Hector just humbles himself, shows up, you know, tosses down his coat, and then, you know, has his emotional send-off with Katsumi. That was, you know, enjoyable. I liked that he kind of had this, like, redemption. Like, he was one of the only convicts that, like, had, like, a turnaround. Like, I almost didn't want him to go back to prison after this or, like, get killed. I thought the convicts were all going to get killed. I'm genuinely surprised. I don't think any of them did, even though Spec seemed like he was kind of on his way out, even though he did that thing where he was imagining swimming. And he's blinded he's doing his whole thing where he's learning to fight like based on sound now, which is pretty cool. I honestly hope we do get to see the convicts show up again. I know Bakido without the hyphen is up to like 125 chapters right now, so maybe they've shown up in that time, but I'm not overly sure. I'm hoping to see some them show up somehow, and see what else they bring to the story, especially because they've been improving in some ways since we've seen them. Kaoru Hanayama. Kaoru Hanayama. He is my favorite character. Above Baki, he is my favorite character. Absolutely. What a cool guy. You know, like, I love that he's a sweet boy, but he's also like the most just actually badass character. Like, Yujiro's always just like flexing in like ridiculous manners where it's like, what? That's crazy. But like Hanayama is like, yeah, Hanayama could do that. I for sure believe Hanayama could do that. He's just a badass. For sure he's just a badass. You know, he got that back tattoo where it's a depiction of the guy that saved his family hundreds of years ago. And the guy died standing, had scars on his back. And so the tattoo wasn't complete. Went and fought the enemy Yakuza family and got himself all scarred up just so that the tattoo would be scarred up. That's awesome. That's so badass, you know? He had his fight with Baki where him and Baki became friends after. It's a big cliche with like shonen stuff where they fight and then become friends after. I really like that Hanayama and Baki became friends after. They like have a good friendship where they like relate, or they're kind of like sad, like stuff going on with their parents. The whole thing where he like rips a card, like he like pinches and rips a card. Whenever I talk to people about Baki, even people that like don't watch it, I'm like, man, there's this character that pinches a deck of cards and he just rips out like a finger chunk of it. How nuts is that, right? How do you not want to watch that? I really like him. Like their whole thing. I loved his fight with Spec, where his fight with Spec gets to the point that Spec's like he puts loose bullets in his mouth and punches his jaw closed, and the bullets all shoot out of his mouth. And he still manages to fight. He gets his knees shot out, and he still manages to get up and fight Spec. The cop is like, you know, I actually really like when Baki does the like it cuts to eyewitnesses thing. I always love when you take the perspective of the characters that like don't have the superpowers or anything, and there's like, yeah, this is some crazy stuff I saw. This was wild. I can't believe what was going on, but I saw it unfolding right before my eyes. The whole thing where he's like, you know, this would have killed any ordinary man, but Kaoru Hanayama is no ordinary man. You know, they did that when he still managed to get up and beat Spec while he's got his knees shot out. He got his knees kicked in by Yujiro. He obviously didn't get up after that one, but, you know, he still was fine after that. I like his little thing he does, like, for his mom, where he squeezes the roses out of it and gives her the perfume because she loves roses. His fight with Musashi Miyamoto was nuts. It was so cool, where he throws his punch at Musashi, and Musashi slices into his fist, and his fists are his bones are so strong even, that it stops the blade, and then he's still got the blade wedged in his hand, and he throws another punch, and then he just keeps fighting Musashi. He's not got any weapons, and all because he was able to fight Yakuza guys who they tried to attack him with katanas. Like, he's not getting cut by... Like, he's getting cut, but he's not getting cut up by Musashi. He loses a bathtub worth of blood, they say, and he, like, survives still. He's just such a cool character. I was telling my partner about this fight, and my partner was like, man, I don't even think there's that much blood in a person. And I was like, yeah, well, Kaoru Hanayama is not an ordinary person. You know, this is Kaoru Hanayama. And my partner was like, yeah, alright, I get it, I guess, but that's crazy, dude. Like, why do you watch this? This makes no sense. And I was like, that's the best part. I like when things don't make any sense. So, yeah, that's all. That's it for Hanayama. I just really enjoy Hanayama. He's I like it's crazy to me also just the last thing that he's only like 2 years older than Baki. Like he gets introduced, you see him during like the childhood saga, and you're like he's just like this towering wall of muscle. Like he's wider than any of the other characters, and it's like yeah, this character is 15 years old. He's just like in high school, like how what? And like his appearance hasn't changed at all. Like, I don't think he's got taller since he's been introduced. He's like 19 now in the story, or like 20. But he was like, that's crazy. He's like the most like just your average middle schooler, and he's like this wall of meat basically. That's crazy. So yeah, that's all I got on Hanayama. Top favorite character. I love Hanayama. Yeah. Sikorsky. Sikorsky's pretty cool. I'd probably rank him like in, I want to say B, below Pickle, because Pickle did a lot for the series where he brought out a lot of the other characters' potential. Sikorsky didn't care for the whole thing where he shows up and he like kidnaps Kozue. I thought it was insane when Baki punched him out of like a 65-story building, or like off 65. That's just like an arbitrary number I'm kind of making up. That might not have been the right number, but it was ridiculously high. And the only reason he didn't die is because he only fell one less story than the building is, because he just barely managed to grip the wall. It's pretty cool. He's basically like Spider-Man in a way. Like if he just got like web shooters, he could literally be Spider-Man because he can climb sheer walls with just his grip strength, which is absurd to me. Like they never really had Hanayama versus Sikorsky fight. Like when they were building up, they always do that thing where they build up these characters like wrestling builds up characters, where you always hear about how monstrously strong these titans of muscle are, but when you hear about it enough, you want to see them fight. You're already invested in it. Some of these characters I wanted to see fight the way they built them up. Sikorsky can grip and climb sheer wall that has like nothing to grab on it just because he's got strong grip. What about Hanayama? Hanayama's got a strong grip. He's got his whole thing where he bursts people's arms and crushes them into paste. He can rip out like a card pinch. He can bend coins with just this. Like, why didn't we ever see Hanayama versus Sikorsky? We should have seen that at some point. I'm sure we will see it at some point. I hope we do, but I'm kind of surprised we didn't. What is this? Kosho Shinogi? I want to make sure I get his name right. I got it all written here. Yeah, Kosho Shinogi. He's pretty cool. I didn't really care for him at first when he first got introduced and he was like just the cord cutter guy. I think that's a cool technique where he's like a karate dude and he like can stab his fingers into your skin. Like he can treat his like fingers and like toes like blades, like they're sharp like a tiger claw. That's a pretty cool thing. I can maybe break him at the top of B, I'd say. Because like I like him. Like if the opinion I had of him like originally would have maybe put him down in like around D, maybe like C above Yuichiro. But he's kind of grown on me. He's a pretty cool character. I like his whole dynamic he's got with like his brother Kureha Shinogi. He's grown on me where he's helping people. He's like teaching in Shinkai, like what he does extends a little bit on his cord cutter technique. He's a pretty cool character. Not a huge amount I can say about him. I like that he's one of those characters that got his ass handed to him and he kind of turned around and became a friend. So that's that. Musashi Miyamoto. He was a very cool character. He was the antagonist for the entirety of Part 4. I don't think there's been a character that's been built up for the entirety of a part. The way like Pickle shows up after Baki fights Oliver, and he's like he's in the Son of Ogre arc. He's in between Yujiro and Oliva, but Musashi like had a whole saga. You know, the whole first part is they're doing the childhood saga that where he's got to go build out to fight Yujiro, and then it's got the whole tournament thing. It's got the arc where it's, you know, his daily life and he's entering in that karate tournament. But Masashi was like a whole villain. You know what I mean? He was really cool at first. I really liked him. I still like him, but like, he was hard to read. He was a hard character to read because he always had like the same expression, those like piercing eyes. I liked that kind of like childish smile he got whenever he like saw that this might be a character that he could like test his strength against, or like that he could have like an enjoyable fight with. Or that he was just generally impressed with the way they moved when they fight, but he didn't consider them a warrior. And then but then like after he gets like beat by Matobe, he kind of goes on a rampage and he's like obsessed with like the pride and the fame that like modern Japan is giving him. So he kind of like started to falter on me a little bit. It was almost like the author was like, all right, I need there to be a reason for Baki to want to kill him. So, you know, he created a reason for Baki to want to kill him. But I ultimately feel like, you know, that's all he was just around for characters to want to fight. He like kind of snapped and became obsessed with being. I liked his whole his like fish out of water thing. I liked that he was similar to Pickle, where like they were both, you know, taken out of time. I think it's cool the way they got him into the present, where they cloned him. He had like a fresh body, and then they had Tokugawa's sister, who's a medium, like summon his soul from the afterlife and then put it in the body, and then the body like altered to match him in his prime. That was pretty cool. But he kind of faltered on me as the story went because he just started like cutting people up and it was getting ridiculous, and I like was reminded of like how graphic the gore in Baki is, and I'm not like turned off by gore in anything. Like Invincible and JoJo are two of my favorite things, and they're gory as hell. Baki's also one of my favorite things. They're all in my top 5 favorite things. But like that was like, oh Jesus, this is just like brutal. Or like the whole thing where like every time a character's talking to him, it's like, did you just cut me? That kind of eventually got old, where it was like every time he's talking to someone, they're like, ooh, I think you just cut me. That's kind of messed up, but like they didn't really cut him. But yeah, I think I could put him in, I'd probably put him in A, and A, I guess, would be like the first rank to completely fill up. I think A would be the first one to completely fill up. And I'll put Masashi. No, I'll put him up higher. He's above Speck and Doyle. I don't think he's above Doppo Orochi. I think that's a good placement for Masashi. So that's pretty much where I'll leave him. I think he had really cool fights with everyone, but he kind of got annoying when he just started like cutting people up and going crazy. But like there was never a point where I could really like read what direction he was going. He felt a little inconsistent. He felt inconsistent in his consistency because he was also staying very true to his character, where he was like this ancient warrior that fought based on the ancient art of war. But it just, you know, got old after a while. Goki Shibukawa. I like him a lot. Aiki, the whole Aiki thing is really cool. I don't know what like his martial art is based in. I don't remember. I think it's like jujitsu. Or like something like that. I could be wrong, but the whole Aiki thing, I think that's so cool, where he like just turns their strength back against them and adds in his own just little bit, and that's what makes it hurt them more than it would have hurt him. That's really cool. He's like this goofy little troll man. You know, he's always goofing with people. He threw like the cold pot of water back at Ryuko Yanagi. He's a cool guy. I think Aiki's a fun technique. It's like he could beat Mr. Oliver maybe with his, you know, he's like pushing his grip back on him. He's got that cool thing where like his self-defense is to such a degree that if he's headed like on course for an encounter with someone really strong, then like he starts hallucinating horrible dangers he's gonna have to get through. That's a pretty cool thing. So, you know, yeah, it's enjoyable to read that and like see like just the depiction of like, oh, he's in for something dangerous if he's like seeing like all this. So, you know, he's a fun character. I like reading him fight. I like seeing the stuff where he's struggling against the environment that he's hallucinating in an effort to preserve himself. So I'll put him S, but probably the bottom of S, just below Baki. Katsumi Orochi. I talked a lot about Katsumi Orochi earlier, honestly, with his like whole bone whip thing, where it was like he imagines all the joints. Really cool character. Already before that, he had the Sonic Punch, where he's throwing a punch so fast it's just punching the sound barrier, and it makes the sound of a whip crack. I think that's really cool. You know, being the son of Doppo Orochi, I like his bit where everyone comes in to the dojo wearing shoes, and he's immediately just like at the top, like pissed off, screaming at them to take their shoes off the mat. That's, you know, he's a really entertaining character. He really grew on me because he's a really like cocky dick at first, but then like after Baki beats him, as a lot of these characters, it seems to happen where Baki beats them and they make a turnaround. He's just become humbled. Especially now, like, I loved, again, like I talked about earlier with his Hector Doyle bit, I loved his bit where he became friends with Hector Doyle. That just was, like, a weirdly, like, wholesome bit in the middle of this, like, you know, battle brawler, battle manga / anime. Giving him his black belt at the end of it, teaching him the mock punch. That was really cool. Now he's, like, missing an arm, you know, and he's learning to fight without that. He's still, to some extent, he's like the greatest karate master because of that. You know, he's taken into like the 51st year of karate. It's really cool. I'd probably rank him at S. I put him at S, just above Goki Shibukawa. Kyoretsu. I love Kyoretsu. He is going to go above Baki. He's my second favorite character in this series. He's great, you know. He's weirdly funny. Like, you don't expect it. Like, when he's introduced, he's like this over serious threat where he's just like the kung fu master taking the 4,001 years or taking the 4,000 years of Chinese kung fu. He's all built up. They're always like, oh, he's the master. He's the 4,000 years of Chinese kung fu. This is him, Kyoretsu. But he's like weirdly silly, where he's like, he has his like whole bit where he ends up at the mall with Hector Doyle. They go out to like the restaurant. They're just having a chat. He's throwing knives at him, but then he's like suddenly it's like an absurd amount of knives. Where if you watched it in the anime, it's like 5 straight seconds. He's just going crazy with his knives. And there's just knives flying at Hector Doyle like it's a machine gun, and it's like, there's no way you got this many in your coat. There's absolutely no way. But he does. So, I also, you know, when he's trying to cross the river and he's got Hector on his back, you know, where they had their whole interaction where they fought in the alley, and then Hector, like, defended Retsu after their fight was done. Like, he pushed away some guys that were going to try and take Retsu's wallet. He protected him against, like, a dog that was barking at him, you know, stood there just kind of losing blood until he was unconscious and he had to get taken to the Shinshinkai. I loved that bit where I loved when he's, like, crossing the river and, like, he's running with him on his back. He throws his grappling hook on the bridge and yanks and it just pulls him up. That was, like, I love when they do, like, ridiculous things like that where it's like, what? He's so strong that, like, he just throws a grappling hook up there, and, like, someone like Batman, you know, he has, like, it retracts and it pulls him with him, but Retsu just, like, throws it, and then as soon as it hooks, he pulls really hard, and it just shoots him through the air, and then he lands up, there's the dude on the bike, and he just palm strikes the front of his bike, you know, back wheel explodes off, he's like, sorry, you can find me at the karate dojo, Shinshinkai, takes off, runs across the river doing the ridiculous, like, steps where he's like, I gotta take, like, 50 steps a second just to get across this river. He's like, he looks like he should be moving so fast. I want to see him just actually run on the ground, because if he's stepping like that, where he can run on the water, even though he's moving that slowly, I want to see him run on the ground. Like, why didn't he run that fast while he was on the ground? Why did he save all that speed for specifically crossing the river? All the other, he's like scaring off the fish. That scene's hilarious. That scene also kind of made me fall in love with the series a little bit. Baki versus Oliva really pulled me in, but Retsu and that scene with Hector, cracked me up. I loved it. You know, his boxing arc, the whole bit where he's lost his foot, so he like decides to go to America and learn different boxing techniques, and they're trying to teach him in the gym, and he just keeps doing stance training. Like they're like watching him, he's standing in front of the wall, just like arms up, and they're like, "How long has he been doing that?" And they're like, "He's been in here for 2 hours." And they're like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "It's stance training." He's just breaking a massive sweat, but all he's doing is standing there. They're like, "This is a boxing gym, dude. You gonna fight? You gonna box?" You know, he becomes a boxing champion where he like gets a little bit humbled, where he's fighting these boxing guys that he's not really used to how they fight. You know, they're like really going at him. He's kind of using his kung fu, like just punching moves against them. That was a really cool arc. His fight with Pickle, where he loses his leg, he was the first one to initiate fighting with Pickle. And, you know, he loses his leg, he was completely prepared to get eaten. He gets pissed off when he, like, gets saved. He's got that kind of, like, honor where he's like, you know, I was prepared to put my life on the line, and the fact that I'm still alive now, like, I feel like a coward. But now he's like, he fought Masashi, and was, unfortunately, like, that hurt to read, you know? He's going through all this training. He's trying to learn the Shaori technique, where he becomes like paper, that like Kakukayo was using against Yujiro. And then as the way they set this up was really cool, because Retsu's doing the training to become like paper, to move like a feather, so that Masashi can't cut him, because a sword that can cut steel also can't cut paper, as they say. And then we see Masashi, like, cutting feathers as they fall out of the sky, or, like, tree leaves as they fall out of the sky, and feathers, and he ultimately cuts Retsu. It sucked to read. It sucked to see. Retsu was one of my favorite characters. It hurts that he's not around anymore. But, you know, what can you do? The series has got to have some deaths, because these characters, they take a beating. So, unfortunately, it was Retsu, and that sucks. But I feel like what else is there for Retsu to do in the series? I mean, we kind of even barely have Doppo Orochi around. You know, we don't have Katsumi Orochi around. So, you know, sure, start killing off characters. Just sucks it was Retsu. I'm gonna put him second place, as I said earlier, right above Baki, just below Hanayama, because he is not quite as much my favorite character as Kaoru Hanayama. Kakukayo. He's cool. You know, he taught Katsumi about the imagining his bone whips were a thing. He had this fight with Yujiro, where he introduced the Shaori technique. You know, that was just, that was fun. He was a crazy old man. I don't know what else really to say about him, honestly. But, you know, I'd probably rank him in C. I could rank him above Yuichiro, if it'll let me. Yeah, I'll put him above Yuichiro. Because he's had a good impact on the series, but he's not around that much. He's not around enough for me to, rank higher than that. But he's cool. I don't have enough to say about him, is the thing. Because even when he showed up during the Retsu thing, he's helping him learn how to be like paper, and yeah, I don't know. It didn't work out, But he's cool. Kakukayo's cool. High C. All these characters are S except for Gaia, but high C. Yujiro. Yujiro's awesome. I honestly don't know that I'd put him in S, though, to be honest. I don't know if I'd put him even, because I'm capping these, I'm trying to cap these at 5. And S, I don't know if I'd put Yujiro there. Yujiro makes me, uncomfortable sometimes, he does he did the R word to Jack's mom, and he threatened the same to I know it was to Hillary Clinton, who cares? It's a horrible woman, but you know what I mean? But he's an ultimate Giga Chad, everything he does is just a flex. You know, he's got abs in his cheeks. That's crazy. What kind of workout do you do that? You know, when he hears about Baki fighting the praying mantis and he shatters apart his chair, that's hilarious. I was genuinely confused at the end of the first season of Baki Hanma Son of Ogre when it shows like Pickle in the salt fighting the dinosaur. I thought that was Yujiro for some reason. Like I was gonna find out Yujiro was somehow like from the caveman times and like learned how to be in the modern day, but obviously that wasn't the case. And he had his whole thing where he like killed Baki's mom and like kind of forced Baki's mom into this like weird like personality thing where she really wanted Yujiro to love her, so she was just horrible to Baki until the end. Yeah, Yujiro's a great character. I can rank him highly despite the like really uncomfortable stuff. I'd put him in high A, above Motobe, which ultimately puts Spec down here. I'd put him in high A, highest of A, but I wouldn't put him in S. He's just like, he's a little ridiculous. He's hard to read. I really like after him and Baki have had their fight, where he's like, got this fame now that he's not used to. Like, he's got kids coming up to him and signing autographs, and like, where he's hanging out with Hanayama before Hanayama tries to fight him. And he's like, you know, some kid tried to ask me for an autograph. And he's like, what did you do? Did you sign it? And Yujiro's like, you're not listening to me. And he's like, and then they just keep going on their conversation. And then, you know, this kid comes up, asks him for an autograph. And Yujiro's like, yeah, you see I'm busy? And he slices the paper into four with his finger. And the kid's, you know, he goes off. He celebrates that he's, you know, this is almost better than getting an autograph. It was just cool. I like Yujiro. He's got like fun moments like that. He's just also got his moments where it's wildly inappropriate. I didn't care that also the bit with like Hillary Clinton, like it was censored, but it was also uncomfortable because he had his whole dick out. It was hard as hell, you know, like. But I could still put him in high A, you know, still a cool character. Demon back, it's nuts. I have a feeling Shibukawa is going to get pushed down because we got Oliva and Jack coming up. Not to give spoilers. Oliva, I honestly would say is probably my second favorite character. Second favorite. He's nuts. He's crazy. He is like, when I talked about like Biscuit Oliva to my partner was like, that's absurd, you know? He's got his whole bit where he's like, oh, I gotta push more characters down. Holy crap. There we go. Where he's telling them how he eats like 100,000 calories a day. He weighs like 330 pounds. He's exactly like 5'11". Mr. Oliver is what I would look like if I was 330 pounds of pure muscle, and that's ridiculous. I don't want to be that, but like, God, I love his theme song where it does the ba 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 da ba ba. It like makes me want to eat steak and drink wine. Not that I'm much of a wine guy, but it makes me want to eat steak and drink wine. Every time I cook a steak since finding Baki, I put on that music. So there's that. I love Mr. Oliva. You know, he's got his whole. He's in the prison. He's got like a mansion in the prison. You know, he's got his girlfriend in there, Maria, where like he's as strong as he is specifically so he can lift her. He gets like super overwhelmed, you know, where he just has like a napkin from her town and like that's a little too lewd for him. Like he can't deal with that. That's so funny. He's like telling them how his like skin, he's like holding back. Like if he stops flexing, then he's just gonna absurdly like release his muscle and tower all the way up into the sky. He has his fight with Baki. Still one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite fights. It's my second or first favorite fight. It's that or the fight between Baki and Yujiro. You know, the fight between between Biscuit Oliva and Baki ends in an actual fight. You know, like. Yujiro and Baki ends with them, like, shadowboxing dinner. But Baki versus Biscuit Oliva ends with Baki doing my favorite move that he does in the series, that I haven't seen him do in a bit, to be honest, but I love when he does it. His, like, 2 feet off the ground headbutt, that's a good headbutt. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta really want to take someone down to give them such a headbutt where you got both feet off the ground. It's ridiculous. So yeah, that where they get to the point they're just throwing punches back in each other's face. He picks up Baki and he's shaking him out like a towel. I just saw him try to fight Nomi no Sukune. Not that I still know much about Nomi no Sukune. I wouldn't really be able to rank him. He's the only one of these characters I know anything about, other than the original Nomi no Sukune, I guess. But even him, I could really only rank him in like C or D. He's done cool things, but he was only in the first chapter. But yeah, Biscuit Oliva, I love Biscuit Oliva. I got a shirt of Biscuit Oliva. I ordered it off Redbubble, and it's supposed to be like a box of cookies that says like Biscuit Oliva's protein biscuits, and it's Biscuit Oliva, and like he did that thing where he rolls up into a ball just to get rid of all the points on his body, so he's not sharp or whatever. Yeah, I like Biscuit Oliva a lot. Second favorite character overall. I'd honestly like be hard pressed if there was like a way to put them like right beside each other so that they were in the same spot. Like I could put Hanayama and Biscuit Oliva both at number 1. I would, but that's not an option, unfortunately. So that's the way it is. Kureha Shinogi. I don't really like Kureha Shinogi that much. I could confidently put him at the top of C. Now that C has become characters that like I can talk a little bit about. I can't say that much about Kureha Shinogi. I really didn't like his whole like crazy twisted surgeon thing at the beginning. I think it's cool that like he's like just a bodybuilder. Like he's kind of up there with like Biscuit Oliva, where like they're not martial artists, they're just bodybuilders that are really strong and good fighters. But his whole thing where he's like his like anatomical fighting, where he's like attacking people in really specific ways, that's based on his like perfect surgical knowledge of the human body. It was cool, but it was like whenever I read it, I was like, I hate that. I don't like what he's doing. You know, he's like bringing like Doppo Orochi back to life by like reaching up under his ribs and like massaging his heart. He had his whole like he was doing experiments on people where there was that woman that couldn't walk until she was able to like, you know, forgive Kureha Shinogi, which like cool, she got to be able to walk, but like those people had like prosthetic arms and legs that like he like surgically removed from them for no reason. I just didn't really care for him, but I can at least rank him like above the other characters in C rank. Yeah, that's all I can really say about him. Jack Hanma. I can put Jack in S, just below Baki. I believe that completes my S rank. Let me move all these guys down. Yeah, that completes my S rank. It seems like I'm only going to get down to D rank now. But yeah, so that completes my S. Just there. I don't feel like any other characters deserve to be in my S rank. Jack Hanma, I really like Jack. You know, the whole I wish that it was a surprise to me that he was Baki's brother. Because I watched the Netflix stuff first, as it is generally recommended to do for new Baki fans, because the first stuff is a little bit slow, it's a little bit standard shonen, and you know, the stuff on Netflix is where it's like it starts to get into like the more modern Baki, where it's a little more silly and ridiculous. But I really, that like spoiled, like when they called him Jack Hanma in that, I don't think they mentioned in it that he was Baki's brother, but they called him, you know, like Jack Hanma. So I already knew that he had some kind of relation. When I went back and I watched like the 2001 anime and I was working through the tournament, I was getting hyped up to seeing Baki versus Jack, because I remember the opening from the Netflix one ends with Baki fighting Jack and getting the demon back and whatever. And the whole way through the tournament, like, Jack is slowly getting, like, a little more, like, unhinged, and he's, like, he seems like he's a pretty nice guy at some points where he's, like, complimenting Kozue and telling her she's beautiful, which is, like, creepy because she's underage at this point in the series. But, you know, like, he seems like he's a nice guy. But then he's getting into, like, his fights in the tournament, and he's being, like, weirdly brutal. They keep it hidden all the way through the tournament. He, like, whispers something in Yujiro's ear, and that makes Yujiro, like, ready and willing to fight him. Obviously, the thing he whispers in his ear is that he is Yujiro's other long-lost son. His whole backstory is, like, it's tragic as hell. You know, where he, like, obsessively trained to fight Yujiro because Yujiro betrayed his mother, you know, like, R-worded her, and then, you know, abandoned her and left her, and she got sick and, you know, I think passed on. And he, like, just trained obsessively every day. He'd go to the gym. He was, like, this, like, husk of a man because he was training so hard it was causing negative results and shrinking his body. You know? Just cool character. I really liked him. I love Jack. Like, whenever I see Jack get in the series, all the characters in S rank, when I see them show up, that's it. I'm ready to see them fight. I get a little disappointed when Jack shows up and he doesn't fight unless he's already fought, and that's the reason he's not fighting while now he's still here. Like when he fought Pickle and he got like his jaw ripped off, you know, he was gonna try and fight Masashi, but Motobe got in the way. I saw him fight. It was cool. He's just a cool character. I like Jack a lot. He's a cool guy. The way they did the reveal, like I already knew it, but I really liked the way they did the reveal, like where he comes out into the ring and he's got like the Jack Hanma ring or coat, where like usually it said Jack Hammer as the name he was going by, or like Jack Sama as it said in like the English dub that I watched. His thing where like he actually got Yujiro to like kind of feel fear for a second, but then Yujiro just didn't care when after Jack couldn't beat Baki. He's a cool guy. The whole, like, biting thing, like, freaked me out. Like, when he bit Baki and Baki was, like, bleeding out in that fight, I was like, I know Baki's alive after this because I've seen this stuff after, but, like, damn, dude, that's spooky. You know what I mean? That's just crazy. Like, he's kind of just becoming, like, unhinged. I'm surprised they didn't mention it when they were going up against Pickle, and Pickle kind of takes that stance where, like, they kind of come to the realization that at some point during his life, he actually evolved to walk on his hind legs. Like, at some point in his life, he was walking on all fours, and he eventually grew to learn to walk on hind legs, like, within his lifespan. I'm surprised they didn't really mention, like, Jack in that, because when his body was going through his, like, kind of grotesque changes from like, the drugs, you know what I mean? And, like, taking his, like, kind of charge stance, they compared him to, like, a wild animal. And when they saw Pickle take that stance, they were like, this is crazy. He's, like, not human, obviously. Like, he's, like, an animal. You know, he looks like a lion, like, ready to charge at you. And that was the way they talked about Jack. I'm surprised it didn't come up. Even when they got to the point that they were, like, biting against each other, during their fight, it didn't come up. That, like, he didn't take this kind of, like, animalistic stance against Pickle. You know, like, he didn't get down on all fours. They didn't do, like, a charged thing. They charged at each other. They didn't, you know, reference enough of Jack's, like, more animalistic tendencies when he's, like, hyped up on his drug enough. When he was fighting Pickle, I think that would have been a perfect choice, a perfect time to bring it up. Also, his, like, elevator fight with Sikorsky, where he brings him not the elevator fight, brings him into the phone booth, and there's, like, that dude in there on the phone with his girlfriend who's threatening to break up with him, and they're just, like, kicking the hell out of each other. You know, I really like that. That's similar to the whole Baki and Oliva just, like, taking their, you know, putting their foot down, fighting each other. Yeah, that was cool. So that's it. That's all I can really say for Jack. Mr. Dorian. Mr. Dorian's pretty cool. I don't really feel comfortable pushing Doppo out of A for him. But I do feel fine about pushing Ryuko Yanagi out. And I don't feel bad about pushing Spec down. They kind of, like, he got messed up, you know? Like, he suffered. He got, like, beat so bad he like, regressed and, like, thinks he's a kid now. Um, it's wild. It's crazy. But he was a crazy guy. He had that bomb in his hand, or he exploded Dopo Orochi, and now Dopo Orochi's got like scars. I like when these characters get scars and it's like around, like for the whole rest of the series. I like that, like their battle wounds like actually stick with them. That's like a nice. It's a good touch, you know. And I like that that's happened. It was weird, like he like was beating them and then singing opera. He had his fight on the roller coaster. He's got that like string or that like piano wire where he's slicing things up. He was a cool character to see fight, but it was like, damn, dude, it's so brutal. Like everything he got's like these weapons that just like they just slice things. And then he's also the Kaio that like punched his way out of the mountain. Like all the other Kaio, the other kung fu masters, their like final test was to punch a boulder smooth. And his thing that he did was he punched a tunnel out of a mountain. What? That's crazy. He was a cool character. But, then he has this whole thing where he gets beat so bad that he just is a kid trying to get candy. And that's a little bit disappointing. So, that sucks. I can only really put him in B. I can still put him above Spec because I think he was a little more entertaining than Spec. I like when he showed up with that like bucket of gasoline and the lit match or like the lighter, and Katsumi just like dumped it on him and set him on fire, and then every time he got up he like seemed fine again, and then another person would kick the hell out of him. It was great. Fought the guy on the roller coaster. He goes with all of the Shinshikais, and then he like he scares them all into not wanting to fight them, and he goes to the fair with like the clown. He's holding his hand, going on. He's like enjoying the rides. It was hilarious. I can't really put him higher than Hector though because I liked Hector a lot, and his whole they kind of ruined him. But it seems like he's gonna come back in a way. Like they did the whole Revenge Tokyo thing where they show you all of the convicts like still training to come back at some point. But like for him, it's like, what's he gonna do? Like, yeah, he's doing that weird training where his legs are getting all beefy, but like, what does that mean? He's still regressed mentally to the mind of a child, and it's not like he's gonna like mentally relearn. Like, he's not gonna go back through his history as like a kung fu man, So yeah, rank B, middle of rank B. Che Guevara. Che Guevara. I don't really know where to put him. He was really entertaining. I liked him during the prison bit. I worry that that's the only time we're gonna see him. I feel like that's the only time we're gonna see him. He's like up there. You know what I mean? Like he was one of the strongest characters in the series when we first saw him, because he was to the point that all those guys in prison didn't want to deal with him. He's like trained up a whole country of people to be able to fight without weapons. He like just was able to escape the prison whenever he wanted. He had his fight with Oliva. He showed up to save Mike Tyson, Iron Michael, from the mouth. He's a pirate. I should be biased towards him. One Piece is my number one thing. And I just like pirates in general. I like all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I like pirates. But Che Guevara, I don't really know where to rank him. He had that like badass line where he's like asleep in the closet because he's like, I'll lay down when I'm dead. Or like he keeps saying it's a good day to die. He was kind of a jerk though, right? Like he brought that one guy into the gym, and he had the cops, like the cops ended up killing him because he left like by himself, and they were like, hey, you said you can't be in here alone. You know what? No warning. Shoots him in the head. Not cool. Che Guevara caused that. He was still a fun character, though. Him, I would feel a little more comfortable pushing Dope. No, I wouldn't. I couldn't put him... I could put him above Hector Doyle. That's a good spot for him, I think. Yeah, right below Masashi, right above Hector Doyle. And then Kakukayo and Yuichiro comfortably take a spot down there where their characters I can't really, say much about. But yeah, Che Guevara is a pretty cool character. It was funny that like he was gone for like just a few months. Like he just left in the middle of chopping wood when they were discussing whether or not he could beat Biscuit Oliva. and he just comes back and has a talk with his guys. That was cool. His whole bit where he like infiltrates George Bush's home and like threatens his family. That was wild, crazy, and he's like treating it like it's like a funny like jackass bit. Funny character, cool guy. It's kind of that. His fight with Biscuit Oliva too. They have that moment. They're holding onto the napkin. They're just punching each other, doing lose or lose. It was annoying because they kept talking about like their ways of gripping things. Like, yeah, I feel like I learned something a little bit. I got to tell my partner, oh, I learned why they do pinky out. Because of spices. But I don't care to like your grip strength or like Gilberto style where they're just letting it be on their hands. And like when the wind picks up, they like adjust so that the wind is like pushing it against their hands. That was pretty funny. His whole bit where he's like imagining he's like, I got the support of the earth. My punch is coming all the way down from the core of the earth and I'm going to get you with it. And then Biscuit Oliva, punches him in the face so hard he's like just crushed to the ground, like feet still sticking up. It was hilarious. Getting slapped. He gets like slapped in the chest so hard he's got that handprint and he keeps singing that pirate song. Funny guy. Good, entertaining character. Said some badass lines. B. It's a good spot for him, I think. I don't think I can put him above any of the other characters. I feel like the other levels are pretty well figured out. And all that's left is Muhammad Ali Jr. Oh, man. Muhammad Ali Jr. is a difficult character. I really liked him a lot. Like, when they first introduced him, it was cool to see him fight. I'm like writing a comic that involves like boxing. So like my main character is a boxer. It's kind of Baki with superpowers in a way. My main character focuses a lot on Baki though, or on boxing. So Muhammad Ali Jr., like seeing him fight, I like picked up a good few things, some good concepts that I can use for that. But like I didn't care for his whole thing where he like shows up and he's like, I'm gonna beat Baki, I'm gonna kill him, I'm gonna take Koz away, she's gonna be my girlfriend. I didn't care for that. Like when I finished that season and then Kozue was gone, I was like, what happened to Kozue? Because last time you see her, she like hugs Muhammad Ali Jr. while he's crying, and I was like, what happened? Did she like go with him? I looked it up. She didn't. You get the reveal later. She obviously didn't. She like finishes telling him she's like sees him like a mother. He's kind of like, I don't know. He's like trying to be in this world of fighters. Like he's this like she's trying to take boxing to like another level, but like he's not even fighting as like a champion boxer in America. And he like comes to Japan to do these like underground fights, and he's like not ready to put his life on the line. And he just like wants to steal Baki's girlfriend. I don't know. Like he seemed cool at first, but then he did the whole thing where he just wants to fight Baki and steal his girlfriend. I didn't care for it. I think I could put him like above Ryuko Yanagi. Because I liked him for longer than I liked Ryuko Yanagi. And he's a boxer, Boxing's probably like one of my favorite fighting styles to see, like, or like sport fighter, the kind of situation. Like, hence why my main character is a boxer. I really enjoyed Megalobox. Gaia's gonna stay in F because I don't like Gaia. We'll call all of these S's, just to make it clear here. We'll call all of these S's. I don't like Gaia. I don't care for him. Everybody else is S, a different variation of S. But yeah, so I really enjoy like boxing. I really like Megalobox. I've been really wanting to read or watch Ashita no Joe. I really liked Hajime no Ippo. I like the boxing, but I'm using that for a character in my comic. Mike Tyson in the series, his presence in the series introduced some ideas about boxing too. Yeah, so that's pretty much my list. That's the tier list. I don't know these guys well enough. I can put him at the top of I don't know, Nomi no Sukune, and I can put him also at the top because I kind of know him, but I don't know these guys. I don't know I really don't know these three, but I've been introduced to these guys, and I kind of like them, but I don't like them well enough. I don't know them well enough, so I'm gonna put them at the top of question mark. So, yeah, that's that. That's been the stream. That's been the Baki tier list. Thanks for watching. Thanks for coming. Yeah, I'll probably try to do some more regular streams. This will be up, fortunately, as like a video. I might try and just do some videos. But yeah, I think my regular thing is gonna be like trying to stream. Might do some video game streams in the future. Gonna do some art streams in the future. If you want to see my art that I do, you can follow me on Instagram at Domingo's Pete's Art. It's basically my username or my name on here, no apostrophe. Go right from the A in pizza to art, you know. If you can find me on Instagram there. I also have a Twitter, if you'd rather follow me on Twitter there. You can go on Artful, which I don't use like super actively, but I think it has like the most of my art compared to like Instagram or something. Also Domingo's Pizza. You can find me also on Twitter on my more personal account, where I'd probably share that I'm streaming. I'd share, go on there, Domingo's Pizza, and then subscribe here. Drop a like if you like the video, and yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for